everybody. Welcome, former Congressman Joe Walsh, now Democrat Joe Walsh. Oh, my God. Here with Mike Brock. Welcome.
Hey.
Come on in, everybody. There's Mike Brock. By the way, again, I'll say this a few times. Mike Brock is one of my absolute favorite follows and subscribe tos on Substack. So follow him, subscribe to him. Notes from the circus. Arlene, welcome. I'll say hi to a few people as they come in, Mike Brock. But thank you, my friend, for taking a little bit of time. I want to start here with you, Mike Brock. You sent out a note today on Substack that I just fucking loved, and it's something I believe, but you said it better than I've ever put it. You said today, all Democrats should terminate all bipartisan engagement with the Trump administration and go into a fully oppositional posture. I agree. Explain yourself.
Well, I mean, I am here in Los Angeles, which is the center of everyone's attention right now, and it's very much related to that. That I find myself seeing what we're. I mean, let's just state it plainly. Let's state it plainly. Let's name what we're seeing. We have had civil unrest here in Los Angeles, which, by the way, is not new to Los Angeles. I have lived through several riots now in Los Angeles. I know, I mean, it's a big city. It happens. We're humans. We get angry. We've seen this. We had massive riots after the Dodgers won the World Series. They were pretty serious riots. You should go on YouTube and look at them. This happens. And if you think that this is new, I would suggest you look at the history from the late 60s and early 70s and see the civil strife that actually existed in this country in the Vietnam War era, as well as the civil rights era. This is not new, and this is not how we govern ourselves by sending the Marines into Los Angeles to put down let's be honest. I mean, there was a tiny riot here in Los Angeles in the middle of a largely peaceful protest. This is just authoritarianism, using any excuse they can to legitimize the use of military policing on our streets. And we should just name it plainly. We shouldn't fuck around with this nuance and stuff like that, and talk about Title 10 and the Insurrection Act. That's Trump wants to condition Americans to get used to the idea of having soldiers on the street to put down protests. That is not fucking American. That is not the country that I want to live in. And if any Democrat thinks they want to focus on this issue or that issue right now, or I don't know what to say to them. This is a serious challenge to our basic political norms, our manner of self-government that we have been enjoying for almost 250 years. We're on the verge of that anniversary for our country. And I think Democrats have a responsibility, as the only real viable opposition party in this country, and their namesake Democratic, should bring them to the conclusion that is the imperative in which they serve, which is the continuance of the democratic order in this country. So I don't believe that if you're a member of Congress and you're just focused on trying to find some fucking bipartisan compromise right now and not really paying attention to the fact that power is testing its limits right now in front of your fucking face. I mean, I don't know what to say to you. I mean, you need to get serious. You need to lead. I note that people. I noticed that suddenly Gavin Newsom's popularity is increasing because that makes sense. People want strong leaders. They want strong opposition leaders. If the Democrats actually showed some spine and stood up, I actually think a lot of people would stand up behind them. They need their leaders to tell them what's happening. The Democrats are playing this really weird sort of civility politics game on the Hill, and we're in the middle of a constitutional crisis. That's what this is. That's what this is. I mean, when people write the Wikipedia like page for this part of history 5 years from now, this will be completely accepted as a constitutional crisis, a challenge to the United States constitutional order. And to have politicians up on Capitol Hill acting like that's not what's going on is, I mean, it's batshit insane. And so I just think that people need to name the thing that is happening, which is basic shit to me. But anyways, I'll stop yammering.
Mike, where do you think that comes from? Because I agree with everything you're saying. There's from the beginning when he first got sworn in, there's been an impetus among Democrats to work with him, to try to normalize him, to get along with him. But now here we are 150 days in. It is a
Uh, the answer is
Go
like
ahead.
really simple. Right? It's a party that kind of hollowed itself out with consultants and focus groups, and that's how it's used to sort of like trying to rationalize its political operations. So what the Democratic Party did after the last election is they said, well, oh my God, our positions on democracy obviously didn't like matter to the average voter because they still voted for Trump. Obviously, voters are mad about immigration, so we need to we need to adjust our position there. They're trying to do this like weird like political science Overton window calculation, and and that's not how you do fucking politics. Reacting to polls is not how you lead. Like all of our greatest leader, like Reagan, like Bill Clinton, like all these people, they didn't like go and like look at the fucking polls to try and figure out like what their position should be. They like thought about a vision for the future and came up with a set of rational policies and went out and tried to fucking sell it to the American people. And people bought it and the country got better in both cases. I think Reagan and Clinton were both good presidents on both sides of the aisle. And I think that you can have constructive politics that leans right and constructive politics that leans left. And I'd like to get back to a politics like that. But at the end of the day, like this idea that like what you do is you just like sample the groups and figure out what they all want and then try to come up with some watered down policy that like makes everyone like, feel okay, that you're fighting, you're not just fighting with one hand behind your back, you're literally fighting with two hands behind your back and trying to headbutt the opposition. That's what you're doing. And so, I mean, what Gavin Newsom is now doing here in California is like, yes, that be like that, like like look power in the face and say, no, this is not American, this is not constitutional, like fuck you, this far no further. And if you do that, people will be inspired. People will feel courage. They'll want to support those politicians. That's my advice to the Democratic Party. But I don't represent them or work for them in any
No,
capacity.
I agree, Mike. But as you said right now, and I now am a Democrat, we are the opposition party.
Yes.
Um, and you're right that we need to speak to this moment and inspire people what we're up against. What else would you have? And I'm thinking out loud. They are the opposition party. Don't
Mhm.
fucking work with Trump. I get all of that.
Yeah, don't work with. I mean, Mitch McConnell didn't work with Obama for 6 fucking years, and it actually worked out well for the Republican Party. I mean, sometimes, like, look, I mean, we can talk about that sort of approach to politics, which I actually think was quite destructive. But sometimes there is a good reason to basically put your foot on the brake and say, you know what, actually, this isn't right. This is a lawless administration that's trying to do an end run around the other two co-equal branches of this republic, and we need to tend to that concern as our number one priority, because that's the whole ball game. At the end of the day, like that's what we need to do. And the Democratic Party seems afraid of taking this stance. They think that because the average voter doesn't have concerns about democracy, and they're right about that. They're right about that, by the way. The median voter doesn't give a fuck about democracy in this country, and it's very angering to people like us. But you know what? You can make them care about it. You get out there and you explain to them what they're going to lose, and you make them understand what is happening. You take the lead. The reason why people don't care is they haven't been given a reason to care. That's what political leadership is explaining that to people. Because once people understand what's going on, then it's going to matter. And then they're going to want people who can do something about it. And you can position yourself to be that person. That's how you become a leader. So that's my advice to the Democratic Party.
Oh, so Mike, forget about the Democratic Party then for a moment. The average American doesn't care about, doesn't understand how democracy and the rule of law and all is teetering right now. Can they? Can we make them care?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I want to say this again. I mean, I think what look at what Gavin Newsom is doing right now. I mean, I've been very critical of him. I think his whole sort of warming up to MAGA, like over the last like few months, I don't know what the fuck that shit was. And I wrote some pretty, you know, excoriating pieces on him for that. But like what he's doing right now, that's great. That is good politics. That is the kind of politics that we need to see. Morally serious, speaking the truth, saying I'm not fucking around. This is serious. I'm going to speak the truth, and I'm going to hold the line. That is going to get people's attention. That's going to cause people to tune in. I was watching Harry Enton on CNN, and apparently, like, people are Googling Gavin Newsom all across the country, according to Google Trends, like up thousands and thousands of percent. Exact because people want to see what he's saying. They're curious. They see all this chaos. That's an opportunity. Gavin Newsom right now is doing politics as it should be done. I hope he keeps doing it this way.
Completely agree. Mike, and I'm always torn with this question because I do believe Donald Trump is a fucking idiot. But what is his game? What's his end game here that he started here in Los Angeles?
I mean, this is just like this is the cartoonishly simple explanation, right? Is he's a gangster, right? Like he's always been this. Like he's a mobster, right? And a narcissist. He wants people to respect his power, and he wants to flaunt his power. Um, I mean, it is as simple and vulgar as that, right? I mean, that is who he is, right? I think a lot of people try to talk ourselves out of that and think that this is just like he has like an act, that he's playing in front of all of us. There is some of that. He is a performer at the end of the day, but like in his core character is like quite simple, right? Like he's like, I mean, he clearly has daddy issues or something, and he's a very, very narcissistic, and relies on narcissistic supplies. Psychiatrists can tell you all about this. He is very much suffering from narcissistic personality disorder. There's no doubt about that. Anyone who's been close to him, like former administration officials, Mark Kelly. I mean, they'll all explain this to you. They'll the stories are all consistent. I know that like the people on the right like to pretend that these people are all just like spewing sour grapes, but at some fucking point, like you really think it's that much of a conspiracy that all these people are saying the same thing about this guy? Like conservatives, arch conservatives, former administration officials. The guy's like just a fucking like narcissist. That's what he is. And it's all about him and about his power and about his vanity. And those are the most dangerous kinds of politicians because they want to be king. Like, I mean, that's where that personality trait takes you.
Okay, but do do you think he thinks that way? Like, does he think I want to be a fucking king? I
Yeah, of
want to
course. I
be a
mean,
dictator.
of
I
course he
want to be
does.
like Putin.
Of course he does. You kidding me? Yeah, yeah. Like, have you seen him show any reverence for our history? Like, and have you seen him show any reverence for our norms? Like for our traditions? He doesn't fucking care about our traditions. He was just like he decided not to even bother to be sworn in as president on the steps of Congress this year. He did it indoors because the cold was inconvenient to him. Like he's fucking having a military parade this Sunday. Are you fucking kidding me? In this country, we don't have military parades. Like like that's what fucking dictators do. This guy, of course, I don't think that he has any romantic notion that you and I do for what a U.S. president should be at all. Like he is he's a narcissist. He thinks he's the fucking king of the world. He would be king of the world if he could, and that's what makes him very dangerous. If he were to fully seize control of this country, he would become very dangerous to the entire rest of the world. He would probably try to conquer Canada. He would definitely try to conquer Greenland. That's who he is. It's not an act.
No, no, no. I know, Mike. I didn't explain my question well. I know it's not an act. I know he's utterly lawless and corrupt. He's a pathological narcissist, a pathological liar. I know all of that.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering though. I don't know that he's thought through like this is a plan to do what. I know he wants violence on the street.
He doesn't plan ahead. He doesn't have those cognitive faculties. That guy does not have any kind of long-term planning capacity in his brain. It's moment to moment. Now, if you want to talk about like other people around him, like JD Vance and, and his like connection with like Peter Thiel and these like these quite dangerous people, they have long-term plans. They're pretty scary. Trump doesn't quite understand like, what they're all up to, in my opinion. And to the extent Bannon does, and Bannon and you got Laura Loomer and those guys over there, they seem to understand that Peter Thiel and those guys have those plans, and there's like a Republican civil war in the making there. But Trump doesn't understand any of this. He'll cut any of these people free. He cut Bannon free in the past. He cut Musk free. I mean, he'll cut anybody free from his from his like access to influence if they don't serve his interests. He at the end of the day, he's not an ideological man. He doesn't have an ideology. He is just a might makes right, brutish, like con man gangster. That's what he is.
And Mike, I agree with all of that. So the notion of we're going to create a crisis and we want things to get violent because we want to invoke the Insurrection Act and we want the military on the streets to go after Americans, and we might want to shut down the midterms and have all of this as a prelude to shutting down the midterms. None of that in your mind is where his thinking is, but people around him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they'll be able to shut down the midterms. I'm a little bit more optimistic than that. Here's the thing. And this is like the thing that I really want to just like. This is my perspective, and I think I'm right, or otherwise I wouldn't try to convince you of it. Is that two things are true? Our democracy is facing existential risk, and Trump will not be able to destroy our democracy in the next 3.5 years. But he will do a lot of damage to it. And there will be a lot of crises and emergencies. Yes, there will be funny businesses in the elections, but he won't be able to do the level of institutional damage that's necessary to make it impossible for the opposition to win power in the midterms next year and potentially take the presidency 3.5 years from now. So I would not I don't think that is in the cards. But I also do want to say that we will have a very, very damaged America with a population that does not trust its institutions, and its institutions will be corrupted. They will be weakened, and we will be in a perpetual state of crisis for a very long time as a result of the damage being done right now. And God forbid that we end up in a fucking war. But Trump isn't going to be able to end democracy overnight. But like I say all of this because I want everyone to sort of like set their nervous system to the reality that they currently face. That like this is a battle. This is a political battle for the future of this country, and it's not a battle between right and left anymore. It is a battle between those who believe in the constitutional framework as it was conceived and has been evolved through a series of constitutional amendments through the years and should continue to be evolved. I think we need a few more constitutional amendments based on these lessons, if you ask me. But if you believe in that system, if you believe in that process, it is a fight for people who believe that, and those who want to reshape the nature of power in this country and in the world. That has to be your mindset. This mindset that this is like about like, Obamacare or food stamps or something like that. I mean, those things are important. And like, I'm not saying don't fight for those things as we go. We have to fight for those things as we go. But like your summum bonum, your most like important goal, right? Needs to be the preservation of this gift that we inherited, this ability to govern ourselves that many people, millions of people died for, millions. And we all should be prepared to die for that because that's how we win.
What are a few specific things you most worry about these next 3.5 years?
I mean, terrorism. Terrorism is like I mean, you'll hear this from like anyone. I mean, Timothy Snyder talks about this as well. Um, one of the things that really worries me, and I wrote about this, is one has to wonder, and I do wonder, and I make the accusation in a post that I wrote earlier this week that putting a 22-year-old grocer in charge of our counterterrorism program seems like a deliberate attempt to take our eye off the ball. And I say deliberate. I am suggesting that Donald Trump and people around him are weakening our counterterrorism program because they want to have terrorist attacks occur so they can use those terrorist attacks to justify to the American people that they need exceptional powers to restore safety. So that's what worries me. That's this is the classic. People will be familiar with the term Reichstag fire, which was um, eh, so the history of the rise of the Nazis and Adolf Hitler in the Weimar Republic. The Reichstag, the legislature of the Weimar Republic, was set ablaze, and a man allegedly behind it was supposedly a Bolshevik extremist, a communist who wanted to bring about a people's republic in Germany. Adolf Hitler used this as a way to get moderate conservatives and liberals within the Weimar Republic to grant him, emergency powers in the Reichstag fire decree in order to secure the country against potential communist uprising. Well, you see what happened there. So when you see people referring to Reichstag fires, they're referring essentially to terrorist attacks, using terrorist attacks as justifications for granting emergency powers that basically bring about an end to democracy. Do I think that could happen? I think yes. I think there's a serious risk that as a result of this strategic incompetence that they are undertaking, that there could be there are bad people out there that want to hurt us, and I think this administration may intentionally look the other way, knowing an attack is coming, knowing that they can take advantage of that to do something similar, as happened in the closing chapters of the German Weimar Republic in the beginning of the early 20th century.
Mike, do you worry about the resistance? Again, generally all peaceful, but there has been rioting. There will be violence. Do you worry about elements of the resistance getting violent in increasing numbers?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, like, of course. I mean, and like, there's not much we can do, obviously, right, to control people. People are people. They're individuals. They get to make individual choices. And yeah, I mean, there are going to be like radicals, right, on the anti-Trump side that are gonna go further and further as tensions ramp up. Is that useful? No, we all agree that's counterproductive. Those people are playing into the hands of Donald Trump because he wants to use them as currency to get the American people through through a reflexive policy change, through reflexive changes in views on acceptable use of state power, to become like unchallengeable. So I mean, I worry about that a lot. Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't know what it does to sort of like like finger wag and keep saying that the left needs to stop like these violent. I mean, these people. Like I mean, like there's no committee on the left that can like send an instruction down that says like, hey, like fucking black bloc anarchist loser in downtown Los Angeles, can you please stop throwing that fucking brick at the police car? I mean, I think what I would probably say is to protest organizers. And you saw some of this happen during Black Lives Matter. This happened actually here in LA after the riots actually broke out. Is one of the ways that the protesters sort of like gained back a lot of goodwill is they just like basically like handed over the anarchists to the police themselves before things got out of hand. So like, I mean, I would suggest that like if I'm giving advice to protest organizers and people on the streets, if you see people that are like trying to create a violent confrontation with the police, just like fucking get a bunch of people together, grab them, and hand them over to the police. Like don't let them put you in a situation where you're getting tear gassed when you are out there simply trying to have your voice heard.
Um, I tell a lot of people about you that you are one of my favorite writers on this platform. Um, you are prolific. You're also so invested in this, as you should be, as I am. How do you decide almost every day what you're thinking about, what you're gonna write about, what's got you obsessed that day?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I kind of like actually have the opposite. I mean, I don't have a problem of writer's block. I actually have the opposite problem. There's a lot of things I want to write about, and I don't have enough time. So it's more about like me sort of whittling down through all the things that I do want to write about. Actually, most of the stuff I want to write about is not stuff that's happening in the news. Like I have like pretty big thoughts about like what we should be doing with like AI and AI regulation. I'm like pretty concerned there. Um, and I don't write about that because it's not the most pressing thing. I mean, for me, it's very reactive. You know, I'm trying to like pay attention to what other people are paying attention to because unfortunately, the way that you get people to pay attention is by riding the wave of attention that people have. Is going to the place where people are looking, and creating content that seems relevant to what's currently happening. So I give a little bit of thought to that, and that's that's the name of the game, right? If you want to have influence, you need to be noticed, and if you want to be noticed, you need to be perceived as saying something relevant to the people at large. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's just I don't have any like special method. I'm paying attention like everyone else. Reading, I read Ground News, by the way. I like Ground News. It's a really great. They don't advertise with me or anything. I'm just genuinely giving them an endorsement. I think it's a great product. And gives me like a kind of a good sense of where the media is in various different partisan alignments. Um, and I generally I generally show up every day with the idea um that the things that are happening to us are not that hard to understand. They're simple. And people have gotten very used to this notion that everything is like institutionally opaque and complicated. Who knows if the jet that Trump is getting from Qatar violates the emoluments clause? Like I hear arguments on both sides. Like, no, fuck, it's actually really simple. You know what the founders meant when they write the emoluments clause? They meant that like fucking foreign governments shouldn't be giving gifts to our politicians. And this is a gift to our politician. It's against the emoluments clause. It doesn't matter if he's giving it to his presidential library. What the fuck are you talking about? So the way that I decide to write is just to like look at a truth like that and just like aim towards that truth and just like show all of the confusion that we've built up in our society. This belief that like we need to like hear from like a conservative leaning lawyer and their view on the emoluments clause, and like a liberal what are you talking about? What are we talking about? That you know that I mean that's like my project is simply trying to get people to see that. And I know that, it's funny I'm saying these are things are simple, and I write in a relatively erudite prose, but the thing is these things are simple. They're simple truths, and we need to read, and we need to like have the confidence to accept our own intuitions that these things are wrong, and not export our moral judgments to these like fucking commentators on any of these networks. No, don't even. This is actually, if I would say one thing is like I'm trying to teach my readers like actually like how to like how to think about their connection with their values and their country. I don't actually give many political opinions actually on Notes from the Circus. I try to show people like the contours of ethical reasoning and moral reasoning, and show things that I think are like intuitively and obviously and rationally wrong, and things that are intuitively and obviously and rationally right. Um, and my goal is that like I want people to be able to do that for themselves. I'm not trying to do that for you. I'm not trying to tell you what you should think. I have my own political views, and like people, I think I wrote a piece the other day on what my ideology is, and I believe that part of living in my ideology is America. It's America. Right? I mean, I'm gonna give you more simpler than I did in that piece. The idea that we all come together and work through our problems. We have representative government. Our representatives, they set up committees. They should try to understand the issues. They should try to understand what their voters want. They should be honest with their voters. They're like, we understand that you want this. It's gonna be very expensive. People want this, maybe we should raise taxes to pay for it, and just have honest conversations like that. That's how our government should run. And if people don't want to raise taxes to pay for it, then we can't have it. Like, I mean, like that's my ideology. Like that's simple. This like let's have a country where it runs as designed. Like, let's get back to the basics. Let's be like it. We have complicated things that don't need to be complex, and there are too many. And basically, evil profits from that complexity, and we all suffer.
I'm my ideology. I'm generally libertarian. I'm generally very free market oriented. Mike, what do we do about this problem of misinformation, disinformation, bullshit, and lies in this wild west world now that we live in with the internet, podcasts? I mean, a gazillion different news sources. What do we do?
I don't know.
I don't.
This. So I mean, this is the. When we look at this like through my like philosopher lens, right, we talk about this epistemic crisis. This is what you're describing. um we weren't built for this. Humans weren't built for this. We weren't built to be assaulted with this much information, these many opinions, these many perspectives, these many concerns, right? Like we didn't, the average citizen in 1900 didn't have to worry about, what could happen with like AI and synthetic biology and climate change and like social media. I mean, like, these are we're our world's becoming a lot more complicated. Our brains are not meant for this, clearly. Um, I mean, I can't possibly, like, keep up with the complexity of the world. Anyone who thinks they can is deluding themselves. Um I mean, I think the answer, honestly, is looking. I don't know how to put this, but like really think about like you and who you are and your embodied and the embodied person you are and the people around you like in the real world, not through a screen, and start getting back to that basic human condition that we emerge from, and recognize that like all of this stuff that we did, all of these things that we built were all meant to serve that humanity that sits at the core of us, that we're constantly running away from in this very confused, complex age. And I think, you know, it's not a matter of like it's got to be a matter of like convincing people, because I think people are I personally like am a lot happier when I'm not doom scrolling on X or Thread. I don't know about you guys. I don't know like uh we know that kids were happier when they weren't on Instagram and TikTok. We know this. Like, uh we Jonathan Haidt like talks about this. Like we have the scientific data. Like these social media apps are making our children miserable. They're making them miserable and lonely. Um, so why don't we stop? Why don't we find a way to reinvest in community and companionship and these like basic fucking virtues that like used to be just like normal, but now seem like I don't know, like people think it's like kitsch or something. Like I don't know how I don't know. That's my like my take on like how we build a bridge back to like a more humane society where people care, because in that society I think people care about truth, because then they feel like they have a visceral sense and an understanding about like what matters. Nobody seems to really like we've all lost touch with like what matters, and I think it's because we've lost touch with ourselves because we live through this screen, and the reflexivity of our like thoughts with the social media content that comes in is confusing us in ways that is just like it's crazy. And if we could just like unplug a little bit and just like reintegrate as like normal people in the real world, like go and like knock on your neighbor's door and say you just want to introduce yourself, right? Like, and start building those like human connections again. I think like I think a lot of people will wake up to the fact that like we don't need all this shit. We can actually like we could like we can make technology serve us rather than us than us serve technology. I think that's I know that's like not a direct answer to the question you asked me, but I think it's the way you need to think about it. And I think that's the path to, our salvation, if there is one.
Completely agree, Mike. Last question for you, my friend. And by the way, everybody listening, Mike Brock, if you're not subscribed to him yet, please do. Notes from the Circus. You had a live today, Mike. America at a crossroads, democracy is at stake. And you said, we can win this fight, but only if we face reality clearly.
Yes.
I love that. Explain it.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess I'll repeat a little bit of what I said in that piece is we have to accept that what is happening is happening. The past is gone. Um, I'm a I was a big believer, for example, in the international security architecture of the United States, which includes, the NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and um, other other alliances that keep us safe. But I also don't want to lie to myself and think that like we're just going to like bounce back to that world. I think that world's gone, and we have to be okay with that, because that's how reality is. And so you have to work with the cards that you're dealt, and that's sort of this. I mean, this is kind of stoicism, really. I mean, if you want to like get down to it, but um we have to remind ourselves that things were worse in the past than they are for us now, and they're worse. And actually, there's people in the world right now who would love to have our problems, and so things can be worse. And so, even though it's very hard and emotionally activating to see all of these things that like people like me, like fucking like coastal elitists like me are like very angry or being destroyed, um, recognize that um this is the reality. This is what we're dealing with, and this is where we have to build from. We have to build from this place. But um that's also where you can sort of change your mental framework from this sort of grief of loss towards seeing the opportunity, right? Yes, the structure is damaged and the windows are all blown out, but like, yeah, I mean, like we could build some better windows in the future, right? You need to get yourself into that place, because when you think about it, right? Like, I mean, if people in World War II, if people were just sitting there thinking about like, wow, this is like collapse of the Treaty of Versailles, like with Hitler invading, Poland. Jesus, like, oh my God, like that security architecture is gone. Like, oh my God, how are you going to get back to that? It's like, no, you had to like go and you had to deal with the situation. You had to go fight. And so you have to sort of just accept that the world is as it is. Um, and that doesn't have to mean despair. It just doesn't have to mean that. Um, it doesn't mean that there's aren't reasons to be afraid. There are reasons to be afraid. I mean, let's be very clear. But there's a lot of reasons for hope too, and understand that in humanity, some of humanity's greatest moments, right? Um, people were faced with far worse than this, and most people were still okay. Like life went on. Most people survived the Second World War, guys. I mean, most people survived. I mean, millions and millions of people died, yes, but most people survived it. I mean, it's it's kind of like a morbid way to think about it. But I'm just trying to like give people this sort of like architecture to sort of realize that like all is not lost. There is something to work with here. We can march forward. We can win this fight. Of course we can, and we will.
Uh, Perfectly put, Mike. Great stuff. Thank you. Mike Brock, everybody. Notes from the circus. Subscribe to him. Michael, thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Joe. Anytime.
You got it.